This is VEDN day 6. I can't hold up one hand and give you the number of days anymore because we've passed the one hand threshold. So there's a TV show that I like to watch called The Legend of Korra, and it's a great show. Really love it. Maybe it has some storytelling issues at a few points, but nothing too big. But the one part that really irks me about The Legend of Korra is the ending. And that's a tale as old as time, you know. Oh, it was a great show, and then the ending fucked it all up. Well, this isn't quite that, because usually it's the last episode that people have a problem with. Oh, the last episode, it didn't wrap everything up very well. It didn't do what we wanted. Whine, boo-hoo. No, I actually don't think that the last episode is bad. I think it was a decent last episode. The problem is not the last episode. The problem is the last 5 seconds of the last episode. Yeah, I know, right? How can you possibly fuck up a show in the last 5 seconds? Somehow they figured out a way. I mean, it's impressive that they managed to just... that you don't even have enough time to make an irksome ending in 5 seconds. But yeah, somehow they figured out a way to do it. They must have been real committed. So how did this happen? How did we get a show where it's pretty good all the way through, but then the biggest irksome moment happens right at the end? Well, okay, so to set this up, we have to talk about characters a little bit. So, main character is Korra, and she's a woman. Well, she becomes a woman by season 4, which is the final season. They're mostly, these people are teenagers for most of the show, and then kind of in the last season they're adults. But yeah, Korra's a woman, and she has 3 friends who are her age. So there's Mako and Bolin, who are brothers, and then there's Asami, who's another woman. And there's a whole storyline in the show, in the first 2 seasons, of this love triangle between Korra, Mako, and Asami. So Korra wants to fuck Mako, Asami wants to fuck Mako, and Mako can't make up his mind which one of them he wants to fuck more. So that's going on, and a lot of people hate that love triangle. A lot of people think that it's stupid or boring. I actually thought it was pretty entertaining all the way through. I was pretty engaged by it. There's a hot take for you. I like the love triangle in Korra. I think it's kind of funny. But the thing is, like, they go back and forth enough times that it becomes ridiculous eventually, and even Mako at that point is like, man, I need to rethink my approach to this. So he kind of exits the whole love picture. He kind of wants to step away from that in season 3, and he becomes really awkward, which is funny because he was like too cool for school in the first 2 seasons, especially season 1. He was like, yeah, I'm a big shot, Mako. I don't have to care about anyone. And then by season 3, he's just kind of awkward around women. He's like, ladies, at ease, you know. So that was pretty funny. But then that leaves the creators with a problem, which is that there's no love interest for Korra or Asami anymore, because Mako's out of the picture. So what are you gonna do? And so somebody in the Korra writing team had the brilliant idea of, let's make Korra and Asami the love interest. I mean, what else are you gonna do? Bolin? Hey, I like Bolin. I think Bolin should have ended up with Korra. There's another take for you. But yeah, so, but they wanted to do Korrasami. That's what's called. The ship is called Korrasami. All right. But there's a little snag, which is that Legend of Korra was made 10 years ago, and it was made on a network that primarily does children's programming. And in fact, they don't really have any adult programming, because even Nick at Night is just old TV sitcoms from prime time from like 10 or 20 years prior. So, yeah, Nickelodeon at the time was a little bit nervous about being the first ever cartoon show for kids that had homosexuality in it. That was, and you know, you can't blame them. You can't blame them, because that's a big commitment. That's kind of a big statement you're making, and I understand why they wouldn't want to just go out and make that statement. And so I don't blame them at all. But apparently the creators of Korra really wanted this for some reason. They really wanted this this relationship to happen, which it's kind of weird, because, like, you know, Korra's a woman, Asami's a woman. Usually women don't fall in love with other women. It's known to happen from time to time, but you know, it's not usually how these things go. And so it's a little bit odd, I guess, that these two characters were going after the same dude, and then they suddenly are like, no, actually, it's you who I want. But they were going to figure out a way to set this up. And so season 4, I think, originally, was planned to have that as a major story component. And you can see ways that they were kind of trying to do that. Like at the very beginning of the season, you see Korra and Asami have been intimate pen pals for quite a while, and it makes sense. Like the whole that evolution in the story makes sense. There's a reason for it, and I can buy that. Like, if they're communicating a lot through letters, they might say things through letters that they'd be more embarrassed about saying to each other in real life, especially when their other friends are in the room. And so you can kind of get something developing out of that. And then there's also a part, there's this very quick little moment a little bit later in the season where Asami says something to Korra like, I like your hair. But she says it like that. She doesn't go like, I like your hair. No, she's like, I like your hair. And then Korra, you can see her blush a little bit. Says like, oh, okay. There's something. They were really trying to drop hints, is what I'm saying. They weren't gonna say no. They weren't gonna take no for an answer, and that's the problem. Is they chose not to take no for an answer, and thus they weren't working within their limitations, because they're okay. They basically were like, okay, Nickelodeon doesn't want us to make Korrasami a thing. We are gonna make Korrasami a thing, despite the fact that it makes no sense now, because we can't develop it. We can't actually develop the love story, and yet we're gonna try to force it in at the very end of the show. And so the most they could do was imply. So at the end, at the very end, Korra and Asami, they're looking longingly at each other. They start holding hands. They enter the spirit portal, looking longingly at each other. And then that's the end of the show. And my problem with this is that, for one thing, it kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, wait, are they like sapphic lovers now? Like, there's no indication that they were even into that kind of play in the first place. There was like that one moment where Korra blushed when Asami said, "I like your hair." But that's it. And so it's like, wait, what's happening? This comes out of nowhere. And then, by the way, there wasn't even really much friendship connection between Korra and Asami in that season. There was, of course, the pen pal thing at the very beginning of the season, but after that, they like barely, they don't talk to each other hardly at all, and so it's very confusing where at the end, this is the last moment that they choose to end on, my problem with it is that this is the last moment of the series. This is the last moments you have with these characters. And so ending it like this kind of is almost a way of saying, well, this is what it was about the whole time. This is what all of this was all about. And it's like, no! This is just some ship that you decided to force into the last 5 seconds. It's like, because the way that the previous show, Avatar, because this is a sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender, the way the previous show ended was with Aang and Katara kissing. But that made sense because it was set up very thoroughly throughout the show. And so ending it like that was very thematically appropriate. You know, after they save the world, now they get to be together the way they've been wanting to. But with Korra, it's like, where's the setup? All right, we got the punchline, but where's the setup? And so it feels like they just tacked on a ship at the end of the show, and they did it because they weren't willing to take no for an answer. They weren't willing to just be like, okay, we can't do this. You know, we got to work within our limitations. We have to create another ending for the show. So it's frustrating because I love the show so much, but then I can't think about the end of the show without thinking about that moment. And I can't watch the end of the show without just getting taken out of it in this really jarring way right in the last 5 seconds. So, yeah, Legend of Korra, highly recommend it. Watch it. Just when it gets to the last 5 seconds, turn it off.